Andrew Broussard watercolors. Today I have a painting demo for you, but this will be with a oil painting. I have a 5x7 gesso board. It's made by Ampersand Brands, and it's just a board that's apparently archival, and it's gessoed and it's relatively smooth. I'd prefer if it was a little bit smoother. I haven't used it in a while, and I'm fairly new to these type of boards, but so far I feel like I prefer a smoother board. I have a pretty simple palette set up. Let's see what we got. We got the Gallicide light to mix into it. I have some white, sap green, lamp black, I believe, Venetian red, and ultramarine blue. Mainly just going to utilize these two colors right here. I put them down in that order for no particular reason. To kind of set things up and then push things back and forth with the black and blue and the white. Okay, I don't really have a landscape in mind, but I do have a little bit of an idea. So I'm going to take these two colors and mix them together. I got this color combination from the two other prominent tonalist painters that post online, Dennis Sheehan and Stuart Davies. Mixing these two colors together to get kind of a brown with some green and whatnot in it, green and red. So I'm just going to put this in and make up a landscape as I go along. I have some ideas for potentially water and light reflection in it, but we'll see what happens. I'm just going to push this around, like I said, make shapes. This will be kind of a laid back, relaxed video. I'll just play around and experiment and see what happens with it. I was originally going to just do a time lapse so I could just listen to some music and all that, but we have a thunderstorm that's been passing through for a while now, so it's been nice just listening. I have to be careful that composition as I've been looking at from the master painters of the 1800s don't accidentally come out, but this is coming out in a compositional shape of the one from earlier today. I think it was Herman Herzog. He had mountains in his. I'm not going to put mountains in it. I want more of a swamp, bayou, Louisiana feel. I usually oil paint on easel, but being that I'm filming this, I can't figure out the angles for the camera, so it's just a lot easier to face it down. This is my first time painting this small without an easel. I may have to find a better way to kind of keep it from moving. I have it on top of the towel to prevent the oils from getting on to the tabletop and whatnot. This will wind up being water passing through here. So if this is your first time checking out this channel, feel free to like, subscribe, follow. If you have any questions, ask questions down below. I try to respond to everything. Sometimes I don't get notifications, but I'll do my best to let you know if I once I see anything, I'll respond. I also have links to a Patreon account down below. So if you'd like to support the arts and help promote more videos and have more content, etc., I'd like you to check that out. I have some cheap tiers. One's like $3. The other one's $5. The $5 one has some exclusive videos on it. But I like to really prefer to do a lot of public videos for y'all. It just helps going towards buying supplies and whatnot. And if you're not able to, or if you don't want to, that's fine. I understand. There's also the Etsy if you're interested in anything ever. Just creating a landscape. This is the funnest thing about the oil painting and the tonalism, that you kind of just go with it. And the oil paint is just very easy to push around, especially with a little bit of medium on it mixed in. And I haven't even started playing with the paper towel yet, which is another very fun aspect. My friends had posted that we had some hail in town, but it might have been on the southern side. I went outside to check, but there was no hail. But I think there's a few more lines of storms coming through, so we'll see. Now you can just play around with it and put that out, but here I take the paper towel and I start softening things. And the approach that I've been learning and working with, these are if I have a hard time opening up a tube of paint. Just going to soften everything up. It does shake the table, and if it was on an easel, it would shake the easel as well. Push things around, soften the edges, and we can build them back up. It just gives a swamp feel. So soften up, and then we're going to come back in, we're going to build it up and darken it and then soften it. Okay, so you see how just you don't have to soften the whole painting. I did in this case just because I just enjoy the process of this, and I just want to relax and have a nice evening. will say oil painting is a little awkward on this size. These boards about $2 to $3 each, which is a little pricey, but I think it's worth it. I can't afford to paint on really expensive boards or canvases. Let me see. Besides just dabbing, I can make shapes and lines and pull stuff with this. And white back and soften. The paint that gets on the paper towel you can lift up and put into other areas and texturize those as well. So not only softening and removing, you can texture and blot into those. Just be wary of a repetitive pattern. I'm going to mix a little ultramarine into this. And put it in as a kind of a darker. I haven't lifted any highlights or anything yet, but we'll experiment with that in a few. Let's see. Let's grab some Q-tips. This smaller, it might be a little bit easier for me to get in. I'm going to move that guy out a little bit so I have a little bit more room for my hand. See how much we could lighten up. See if we can pull out trunks of trees. Then we can take our darker and texture over it. Have those trees set back. Like the trunks. And we can go back and forth, building up until we find what we like. Maybe I'll, let's see. Might change the shape right here. If I bring the land around, then we have the dark shadow down here. Yeah, maybe that's the way we'll play with it. It's backlit, so it is going to be darker, the side facing us. Let's see, took this tool out. When I was cleaning up stuff, I found it. I think it's for sculpting. I figured it would be good for scraping some interesting lines and getting very fine scrapes. I don't know if I'll leave this here, but it's kind of to help me mentally make this edge on top of that water. I was reading that Whistler would do pencil right on top of some of his oil paintings. Pencil marks, which was quite interesting. But I've been kind of on a, I hate to say it, I don't know if I'd say like an anti-Whistler binge. And I guess let me explain before I get booed and hissed. I just read this one story, like true story, where he had like a patron who had, and I told this story in another video, a very expensive, priceless house, a room that was like a work of art, like all the walls were, you know, those panels and whatnot. And he was having, I think, Whistler touch it up or something like that. And he was way out of town. And Whistler essentially turned this guy's like bedroom into an art gallery, painted peacocks on the wall, changed all the colors, painted over all this priceless art. He had priceless Persian rugs, and Whistler cut up the rugs to get them to fit the way he wanted to in this guy's house. And needless to say, the guy was just like livid when he found out about all this, and Whistler lost a good friend and a good patron due to that, which so that's why I've been a little like, oh my god, with Whistler lately. Also read some other interesting facts where he would do his paintings. I think he wanted them done in one go. Like kind of have the oil painting as one kind of skin of sheet of oil. And in doing so, and having tried things all in one sitting, he wouldn't get it done right the first time or the way he wanted the first time. And he felt that, you know, ultimately doing it that way would give him the perfect harmony. But so when he did portraits, some portraits, I think, like no joke, he had them apparently sit for 40 to 60 paintings where he would just redo it, whatnot. So that's quite interesting. I think it is interesting to try to perfect and try to just use the whole one and done approach with a painting, as opposed to painting and coming back to it. That's the way I prefer it. I just can't imagine spending 60 sessions on the same exact thing. Wonder what little changes he would make every single time. Or I find sometimes when you paint the same scene, the same concept, you may become complacent, and you might think, oh, okay, this area is all dark right here, and just do that. And for better or worse, I'm not sure, but I don't know if you start seeing the image less or more if you do it that many times. I'd also mentioned recently, it seems like the two main painters of the tonalist movement, Whistler and George Enes, did not have the best interpersonal skills or relationship skills. And I really wonder if that's I don't know if it has stems from, some people think of artists as pompous and whatnot, and some artists are, and whether it's an act that they put on to make it seem like their artwork's the best, or if they legit have completely sold themselves on the belief of their approach. And a lot of times these are artists that are, trying something different, maybe going against the mainstream, critiqued by the mainstream, the critiques, the artists. I mean, some of the critiques that I read of George Enes in this one book I have by him, they're pretty brutal. Same thing with Whistler. I think Whistler's painting, where it was fireworks or something like that, that led to a whole scandal, and Whistler sued the critic for libel, I guess that's the word. And Whistler won, but he won like the smallest denomination of money, like 1 shilling or something. And it's just a whole big thing. I have this mass here that I'm trying to help distinguish from the water and itself, where I don't want the tonal value to really change, kind of let that tonal mass stay together, but I want a textural or a brush stroke effect that'll help separate those two. I do want to switch it up. I'm going to switch up brushes. I'm going to take a little bit of that medium. Mix just a little bit of white. A little bit of that ultramarine blue. And maybe put a little bit of black for Payne's gray effect. I'll put it in. See if this works. If it doesn't, just kind of wipe it out and see. I might come back to that. Like I said, just to put in a little bit, soften it up some, play around with it. Let's see. Oh. See, I caught some of that dark from here and brought it up into the sky. It was a little too textured. You can just wipe it right out and just go back and forth. And then eventually the paint will dry. This medium, after a while, it gets a little tacky and things start to become a little bit harder to push around. But I think there's really no fear or worry about overworking. It's a good, meditative, experimental creation. You could open up bird holes in here. Bird holes meaning holes to see the sky through it. I could come back over it and do those textures. Remember we had put those trunks in earlier, and branches. And those pretty much got covered up. I just want a little bit of red in here and see how it gets affected by the paper towel. Maybe put a little dash of red down in here. I've been told that they have Q-tips that are a little bit thinner. I'm filming this live on Twitch, and somebody just entered the chat room, and they said, "Hello, how are you?" Hayes, the Reigning Wing. I'm doing pretty good. How are you? Just kind of just relaxing, playing around with some oil paintings, just slowly developing a tonalist landscape, kind of like an interior scene. More just to experiment and pass the time. Also, I want some more oil painting videos for the YouTube channel. So I'd like to reach a little bit wider audience, have some different perspectives, different things. I have the pen and ink master studies of landscape painters. I have the watercolor paintings of either imaginary scenes or from photographs, the tutorials for that. And I'd like to have a lot of oil. Though how many people actually pursue oil, I'm not too sure. It's often thought of as expensive and messy, but just like watercolor painting, I've simplified my my setup quite a bit. Here I just have white, black, green, red, and blue, and then a little medium, 2 or 3 brushes that I just clean into my hand. They're asking in the chat how long I've been painting that. This one, maybe a half hour we've been filming so far. I'm not sure what time I started. And we started from scratch. It's a 5x7. And it'll be done at the end of this video. Just a little history on myself if I haven't given that in some time. I did some oils in college, life drawing and painting classes, still lifes and whatnot. But that was on the side. I did my degrees in the sciences and whatnot. And when I got my certification to teach, I took art classes as I was doing that stuff, the education classes. I'm certified to teach art. Unfortunately, I don't teach art. I'm experimenting with this sculpting tool, just with scraping back the edge, just to see. Anyway, long hiatus from painting. I started up again with the watercolors. And then I migrated back into oils, but I also added on some other mediums. I've been experimenting a little bit with gouache. Did that for a self-portrait. I hadn't done one of those in like 10 years. And it was fun. It was eye-opening. I do need to open up that aspect a lot more in practice. And then I fell into the Tonalist style of painting, which was an American movement. It's also a movement in France, the Barbizon school. It was the very late 1800s into early 1900s. The Russians had some of this movement as well. It was pretty much the redheaded stepchild to Impressionism. As in both, there is a lot of textural effects and brush strokes. This is more earth tones, purples, things like that, greens within this movement. More the emotion of a scene as opposed to what actually was taking place. While tonal Impressionism was very high key, very vibrant, and all that. Tonalism, people will often say, has a kind of classic look to it. It also kind of looks like the underpaintings of the master landscape painters, where they would kind of take a brown or a neutral tone, paint with oils, and then I believe they would come in and glaze over it with different colors. I think both schools of painting, tonalism and impressionism, were looked down upon at the time as being incomplete paintings. But it's interesting. One, actually, maybe even be more than one when I think about it. One book writer from the like 1909, something like that, those early time periods. He often talked about how the eye isn't like a camera lens, how a photograph will take in everything. It'll have a clarity all around, while the eye only focuses in on one spot. So there's often an incomplete overall look because there's a lot of softness and blending taking place. But that's the way the eye views nature. At least that's the theory that some of them were building upon. Whistler, I'd read the other day, was very impressed by the Japanese Oriental artwork. Just like Van Gogh is very much influenced by the woodcuts from coming out of Japan and Asia. But Whistler was very impressed by the overall tone throughout and the color harmony across the whole thing. While Van Gogh, I believe, was more impressed with the brush strokes. And it wasn't so much brush strokes. Well, they had the brush strokes with their landscape paintings and drawings, but they also had like the woodcuts and his kind of impressionist movement style. I think it was highly influenced by that Japanese woodcut where they had the wave. I think it might be called the wave. I have to look it up. It's a little bit, mix a little bit ultramarine blue and white. I kind of want to experiment with the sky and adding this up there, but it would just be a little maybe too much. So I think I might mix the Payne's Gray. I mentioned this earlier. Payne's Gray is just a blue and a black. And with oils, just mix white to mellow it out. And I could put a little bit up in here. One thing that I haven't done in a while that I want to do, I'm letting this kind of travel over the tree a little bit. That's just like a kind of atmospheric effect. Whether I'll keep that or not, I'm not sure. One thing I want to do that I haven't done in a while is still lives. In college once, I was an RA in college, a resident assistant. So I was on duty, and I was in, let's take white and put that on here. I was in the office on duty, and one of my painting homework assignments was to take a piece of paper, crumple it up, and paint it. Paint a crumpled up piece of paper. So I was sitting there doing that, and then like one of my coworkers, one of my friends, walks in and like just picks up this crumpled up piece of paper that I was painting and like unfolds it, and just, and how are you gonna refold it into the way it was? So that was funny. That was to help teach edges and planes that were taking place and whatnot. Make it more of a nighttime scene. Make this kind of the moon. You could probably get this darker gray as if it's that evening sky. It's the nighttime sky. I don't know if that's a little too bright for the moon. I feel like I haven't seen the moon in a while. We're down in Louisiana right now. We're not allowed to, in the town I'm in, it's a curfew from 9 to 5 in the morning, which is a bummer because now's the actual time that I can have the opportunity to go out and do nighttime photography, which is something I haven't done in a year, like years. Take this white and let it kind of dance across this surface. We could let it catch the edges and lighten up some of these. There might be a little too much just white though. Maybe I might have to mix that brown and mix a white into it. With watercolor, what I would be doing would be taking raw sienna and stippling that in over these spots first, and that would give me that glow. I was talking to another oil painter today via Facebook, Evans Greyhawk. He posts on the Tonalist Facebook page, and he had been doing a little more detailed work, so I was asking him questions about that and time frame and whatnot that he had put into it. And he was saying that his paintings that he was doing, when he paints in a tonalist style like this, he was going towards more 1850s kind of pre-tonalism painting, Hudson River Valley and whatnot. And he just said, he just put 3 hours of work into it, and he had a 50 centimeter by 30 centimeter canvas, which is about almost 2 feet by a foot, something like that. I can't do the conversion in my head right now. Okay, so we have that. Let's put some little highlights in. Let's see. Now, one thing that might be fun is we could add, let's see, how do I want to do this? I'm going to use this to scrape. I could also take a razor blade, the edge of a credit card. It's something that I rarely ever did, but kind of stumbled more into it last time, where I had scraped in and put a little fisherman. And I'm thinking that here you could almost put somebody swimming or bathing, a very common motif in the 1800s and prior. So I might try lifting it out, scratching out the shape of a person. And they're going to have their reflection going down, and then I'll come back in with paint. This is just kind of me, how I would try to put together the idea. If it'll work or not, I'm not sure. Because they have the reflection going down. So let's see. This is where things get a little hairy for me because of how fine it is. And I can't seem to find a super fine brush for oil painting. There's 2 art stores in the city over, but currently they are closed due to all this. The businesses are raring to open up so that they can get your stimulus checks, so maybe they'll open up soon, but really trying to avoid going out and traveling. So here, person in. Cool. Now with watercolor, if I put something small in like this, I would have my my blow dryer ready to kind of dry it off. But oil painting, that dries through oxidization. So it's a chemical process taking place. I'm not sure if airflow does help it dry quicker, potentially, or temperatures, if it helps it dry quicker, but not within a few seconds, so that I can model what I'm trying to do. I'm mixing just the Venetian red with white at this point, kind of giving me a little bit of flesh tone. How much of a bather that looks like, I'm not too sure, but it's a little somebody in there. We could also put in a second as if it was people going out for a swim. Maybe somebody sitting right along here. There'd be their shoulders, their backside, then their head. So that would be a person. I'm going to have to make them a little bit bigger in perspective of what we're looking at here. And they're sitting. I'm going to take black right off the bat because that's going to be super dark right there. I could probably just paint them in as black, but maybe flesh tone would help as well. To be like, okay, it's people swimming, that they're in the nude. Grab some black here. Shadow. I've heard a lot of crazy stories about different brush habits that painters would have. You know, somebody recently had said that they heard one painter would have a brush that would just have like one hair on it. Or one art professor or somebody saying about a painter that would use one brush to apply a color and then just drop it at his feet, and his assistants would pick it up and get rid of it, clean it off, whatever. Then he would just move on to another brush. I've always been of the school of using one or two brushes. Though fan brushes are fun to utilize with these. When I did a demonstration, a few demos at the Omelette Festival, I put a fan brush into the kids' hands that were walking by and have them paint on top of my painting with a fan brush. Let's see. There's really not much more we have to do. We could put some more darks up in here. On the screen, it's going to read darker than it is, I think. Just because of just the way the camera picks up light and white balance and all that other stuff. But we can put more darks in here. We could grab a little bit of white. Let's see. I'm going to try an experiment here. Get a whitish gray. Maybe stipple a little bit in. Just contouring this grass a little bit. Have it slope down. Rocks are very common within these time period motifs. I'm going to take a card and just see how much I can scrape out. See what happens. It gives me a little rock shape. I have to soften it to get the blend better, but it gives me a little rock right there. I can take my gray. I could really grab some black and let it sit and cast shadows. I can grab some white. Let the light catch on these rocks. So a lot of little stuff going on in this little 5x7 painting, which was a challenge that I'm glad I took on. I think it was Stuart Davies that recently said something to the lines of, a lot of people are scared of a wet blank canvas. Looking at it, they're intimidated. But as you paint and as you progress, you get excited by it. Because all the possibilities, watching things come together. I had nothing like this in mind when I first started painting this painting tonight. But I couldn't be happier with this experiment and what I've learned. So one thing I've been doing a little bit of is trying to get in the habit of just scraping my initials somewhere in it. I really don't want it to be too prominent. Usually I write my name in on a watercolor painting or a drawing. But on oil painting, I feel like it's pulls a little too much from the scene. So yeah. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to take a picture of it and I'll get it uploaded to YouTube. And if you enjoyed, please, check everything out. I'm sorry. I think we need to get this right here a little bit. I was just standing up looking at it and I was like, you know what, let me connect to this piece right here. Anyway, like I said, if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, follow. A whole bunch of links down below for different resources, a whole bunch of other fun stuff. And feel free to ask questions and I'll do my best to answer them. I feel like that's a little better. I'm more happy with that. All right. Have a great day. Bye.